I think there's been a few questions in the chat, but I can see that people have got their hands up. So should we go to the people with the hands up first? Okay. The next person is Atia Khan. Oh, Atia looks like he's going to ask a question. Fab. You just on mute, Atia, sorry.
So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was just looking in different presentations to hear something about change before 2016 and after 2016. This was the year when the reorganization of the vascular services happened. And I was interested in knowing that did it really make any difference in how we deliver the services to the diabetic foot patients with the hub and spoke model? And I think that a new change is again about to happen. So what is the overarching understanding or feeling about this? I just want to get some understanding and perception of that.
I don't know if Fran or Bob want to take that.
I can start with that. It's a really interesting question. And actually, we would assume that the difference we would have seen would be in the major amputation rates, and that we would have had fewer major amputations, perhaps more minor amputations. I mean, in fact, we've seen no difference in people with diabetes over that time period. I think I showed you that graph very, very early on. We would have to dig down a little bit deeper into the data, into local data, to see what a difference that made. And that's where perhaps a GIRFT review would be able to look at that service locally a little bit more in terms of its interdependencies. But in terms of across the nation, there didn't seem to be a huge difference across the time period from that reorganization. It disrupted local services a little bit until things are settled down and people got used to it. Because actually this is from personal experience and talking to my colleagues, many diabetes foot services weren't actually made aware of that reorganization of vascular services into hub and spoke. And we had to sort of sort ourselves out quite quickly afterwards and then make sure that we had appropriate vascular surgeons in the spoke diabetic foot services. But actually it didn't seem to have affected the overall national data. But Jerry, you might have something to say about that from a GIRFT point of view.
Yeah, so one of the difficulties is we haven't had a GIRFT vascular lead. The last lead left about 2 years ago and is only now being reappointed. And we have been jumping up and down about this because during our visits, we are seeing variation in access to vascular surgery. So the trust I've just shown you actually had really good access, but some other trusts, it is a real problem and it really does need to be addressed. The problem I think it needs to be addressed by the Vascular Society itself and the GIRFT vascular leads, because as you know, we have been trying, we've highlighted this over a number of years, but we have no jurisdiction over what they do. But I think they have to look into their own their own potential deficiencies.
Can I take the liberty to just make one comment as well? I had the opportunity to look at 2 SLAs, one in the Swansea area and one in the Manchester area. And I was surprised to see that the service level agreement or SLA that were prepared in both regions, the word diabetic foot was not mentioned.
Yeah, well, you will possibly know that when actually the recommendations from the Vascular Society came out to recommend the hub and spoke model, they hadn't included diabetes. They'd completely overlooked the diabetic foot. And it's only 2 weeks before they published it that they realized that it was a deficiency. So they hurriedly put in some mention to the diabetic foot. So, you know, I don't know what you feel of the hub and spoke model, but, you know, I don't think, personally, I don't think it's been properly governed. But I shouldn't be saying things like that.
Is that okay, Atia? Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, the next person on the list is Zabir Rashid. Okay. And then is it, who have we got next? Sorry. It's disappeared off my screen. Can you see, Alex? Sorry.
Yeah, it's Haroon Sadiq.
Thank you. Haroon?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I see the GIF come up with nice guidelines. Most of the hospitals already have guidelines pretty much similar to this. Would there be a suggestion from the team to replace this as one common guidelines for all trust across the country? Is that something that you would suggest? What are your thoughts on that?
So if you've got a guideline which is working perfectly well, there's no need to replace it. But I think this is just very accessible. So what you can do is go to the GIRF website, put it onto your phone, and have it as one of your favorites. And so it's, you don't have to even, it's in your pocket. So, and Rajiv helped produce this guideline. It's based on something that we've had in Ipswich as well. And there's no difference between what Rajiv produced and what we produced in Ipswich. And then you're quite right. A lot of us have got a similar guideline. It'll be slightly varied dependent on the way your services are set up. But at least it gives you an idea as to, where the patients are likely to need to be referred to.
Is that okay, Fran or Rajiv? Have you got anything to add to that?
I would always suggest, if there is a local guideline that's been approved, do that. You wouldn't want to fall foul of CQC when it is slightly different, and you don't know where your local guideline is. And there may be different referral pathways. It may be that actually you don't have vascular surgery in your immediate hospital, and the first port of call for surgery may be orthopedics or podiatric surgery. So there will be minor local variations. So if you have a local pathway, then please do use it. But where there's a gap, that's a very good pathway to follow.
The only other brief comment I'd make, James, is that it's all very well having a pathway, but actually you need to be sure that the users of the pathway are aware of it. There are lots of pathways that exist in folders that are collecting dust in A&E departments, and there's not much good there. So the advantage of Jerry's pathway is that you can, make it into an electronic format. And I think that's one of the advantages, but it is about publicizing and ensuring that people are aware of it, because there are a lot of pathways that sit in A&E departments for every other specialty.
The other good thing about this is this collective pathway. So it's not only the foot, it's also what do you do with someone who comes into the emergency department with a high blood sugar? Fine with DKA and HHS, you've got guidelines, but actually, can you keep someone do you need to admit someone with a blood sugar of 17, or can you treat them and send them home? And what are the risks involved in that? And so it helps you with that. And it also helps with people with hypoglycemia. So do they all need admitting? What are the balances? So if they've got low eGFR and they're frail and elderly, they're more likely to be admitted and so on. And so there is a kind of decision-making tool on the front door app, or the front door interactive pathway. So it's not just a diabetic foot, it helps you across a number of diabetes specific areas.
Fabulous, thank you. Hope that's okay, Haroon. I'm sorry, Ahmed, but I'm going to jump to Michael Edmonds because his hand keeps coming up and dropping down and coming up again.
No worries.
Is that all right?
Yeah, it's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Hi. Can I just make 2 points? One, there's been a recent paper in the British Journal of Surgery showing that the delay in revascularization that comes from going to a spoke first leads to a significant increase in amputations and death. So it's a big problem that has to be sorted out as such. But I'd like to ask the panel, how regularly should an MDFT meet? Once a week? Once a month? We say now we've got these MDFTs, but I think there's a lot of standardization that needs to be done with this.
Oh, that's a really interesting question, Mike, as your questions always are, and thought-provoking. Yeah, and I think as increasingly as MDFTs get bigger and are often integrated with community services, that does become a problem. Now, I don't think we've only got any national data, so I'm just going to put a finger up in the air and say what we do, and that is our MDFT meets as a sort of in and outpatient service once a week. Where we sit down and look at imaging and have the vascular surgeons and talk with our OPAT service, discuss all of our inpatients and our difficult patients. But that's just practical for us. We're a big service, but I agree. I think as MDFTs get bigger in the wider, more integrated sense, then that is a need that we probably haven't looked at. And my mind is working now on how we have a look at that across the nation.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
As part of the NDA, we do have an integrated structures survey, which is more around the structures and how the services are set up. So it might be something we could consider having in there, Fran, for the next iteration. It's usually October, so we're a bit out of sync, but it's something we could certainly look at adding in as part of that survey. So we'll take that away. Thank you for your point.
And there's a similar comment in the chat. Sorry, about psychology. That while I take that, there's a comment in the chat about psychology. That's maybe something else we can take into that integrated services review. We'll have a think about that.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, next person with the hand up is Kamal. Oh, you're on mute, Kamal, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I think the numbers in the dashboard are very helpful for intra-year comparison for each hospital service. But when you try and compare it with other regions, obviously the denominator is very variable across the regions, if it's community or hospitals and so forth. And therefore, obviously you've got to spend a lot of time within the dashboard to tease out these things and then to go to commissioners to say, look at us and look at them, in terms of investing in improving services. And that's one of the issues I have got with the denominator being very variable, really, between providers.
Are you saying there's too much data, Kamal?
No. When you compare regions, it's great. But if you're trying to compare hospitals, like as Rajiv did, there is or even providers, individual providers, the denominator is very variable across the providers. So therefore, there's no standardization of the data to really say, yes, I'm comparing like for like.
Could I just come in there and say that way back at the start of the NDFA, some work was done to show how many ulcers do you need to submit to get a reliable benchmark. And it was of the order of 60 to 80. The point being that when you see and submit an ulcer, you've no idea what the outcome of it is going to be. So as long as you follow things through, then that sort of number of submissions will give you a reliable benchmark. You can be pretty sure that if you're submitting less than 50, you won't get a reliable benchmark.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay? Okay, Ahmed, I'm going to come to you because I know your hand keeps going up and going. Are you having the same problems? Is it taking your hand down or?
No. I'm just been waiting for you to allow me to have a chance
to
speak.
Oh my goodness. Oh, no, you carry on then. Sorry.
It's fine. Thank you, James. Thank you. It's been always good to hear from Gary all the time. I just want to take an opportunity here. I've been working in Blackpool for over 5 years since we had a transformation funds bid for the food service, and we managed to get our 2 vascular surgeons been on board with a hot one-stop shop, and we have been doing with 2 foot and ankle surgeons along with the multidisciplinary weekly meetings and progress. And the data has been significantly showing reduction of major amputation by 50%, and it's been submitted contributed to the NDFA. And but what I would like here to know from you guys that how can we, the GERFT or the senior people could help us to extend our services, because we are now in a road to move up to the regional extension, particularly in terms of the orthopedic services, because our vascular is being already covered with the regional supports. We have got a good vascular coverage all the time. We have got hot vascular clinics every week and covered by the vascular surgeons on site and in clinics. So is there any possibility that GERFT or NDFA could support us to extend our service to the regional for orthopedics to take it the opportunity on behalf of the regional support? Thank you.
So maybe I can come in there. So interest in the diabetic foot has been very variable amongst all the surgical specialties, vascular and orthopedics. Vascular has certainly come on board a lot more. And orthopedics is doing the same thing, but it's a slow burn. So at the Melbourne Foot Conference, we now have joint symposiums with vascular and orthopedics. And so there's an increasing number of orthopedic surgeons with an interest in the diabetic foot. I think it's going to take some time, but I think it's just that influencing others is the key thing there. Fran, you might know a little bit more about orthopedics and developments in terms of supporting diabetic foot disease.
It is about as ad hoc as vascular was a few years ago, but yes, I do think that your influence in bringing the British foot and ankle surgeons into the Malvern conference has been hugely important to start opening that dialogue. And it is something that on our services survey that James has just mentioned, we do ask about access to orthopedic surgeons, foot and ankle surgeons, as well as vascular surgeries. That's it's something we are aware of.
Is that okay?
We already have got 2 foot and ankles working with us on the team, so we have been sufficient enough to say that we can take the things. But I'm just checking if we can extend the service beyond our hospital or beyond the trust, because we are trying to get somewhere down the Mogambe or Lancaster area. If we can extend our services in capacity to see if we can manage to take the patients for the orthopedics. That's the kind of something I just need to know, because we are full with MDFT. We have got whatever the recommendations comes through, we are exactly following those, and we are very fortunate to have everybody in place right now over the last 2 to 3 years working together. So I'm very pleased to say that the GERFT proposal has been well taken with us, and we are working on it with the regular submission on our reports.
Thanks
so
very much.
I think it's you taking your example of really good practice to influence others. Actually, you know, you've got
I could take a chance to give my privilege to Frank Games when I had some chance of working with her in 2006. If she recall a time when I came to see her during the time when I was in taking MRCP. So since then, she's been my inspiration, and we are working on the direction just to take up further and further.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. You've cheered me up enormously today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kind words. Very nice.
I was just going to say, James, just for anyone who has submitted a question in the chat that's not been addressed, we will pick these up through an FAQs document, which we'll send out following the webinar, along with sort of a bit of a manuscript sort of any questions that have been verbalised as well. So we'll be able to share that as a follow-up resource. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll close there, but thanks for attending, everybody, and hope it's been useful. And we look forward to hearing your feedback and running future sessions. So thank you very much, everybody.